1 year ago, I quit my corporate job to pursue a creative life. I wanted to take some time to talk to you about how this experience was, everything I learned, and what happened during this time. If you're new here, my name is Stephanie, and I have spent most of the last year writing my first book, which I lovingly call Project Lily. First, let me start with some background. I quit my job a year ago primarily because I was burned out and I hated it. And honestly, a corporate lifestyle really doesn't align with me. I had saved up money over the course of a few years, and I had finally had enough that I could live for a while, and I decided to just take a break. And of course, in quitting my job, the first question is always, well, what are you gonna do? And at the time, I had been working on my first book for about a year, and so I decided to just go full-time into writing and dabble in a little other creative pursuits and just see what happened. I also wanted to live life on my own terms, go by my own schedule, and just take every day, day by day. I'm going to go more into depth on what exactly I've been working on, but I wanted to summarize it really briefly. I finished 3.5 drafts of Project Lily this year. I started working on a new book, and I've been posting consistently on YouTube every single week. I've also traveled and spent time with family and explored. I moved to a new place, so I have spent a lot of time just venturing out and seeing what's around. And I kind of hoped that something would have worked itself out in terms of income so I wouldn't have to go back to a corporate job. But unfortunately, nothing's really panned out. So I am looking to get back into the corporate job market. And I've been applying for jobs for about 3 months now. Unsuccessfully, but that's besides the point. I truly have no desire to go back to a corporate job. I've really enjoyed this little life that I've had over the last year, but unfortunately, I need some money. There'll be more of a discussion at the end of this video about how I came to this decision and what I'm doing and why. But I want to talk about the creative aspect first and everything I've done over this year because that's what's most important. First, I want to talk about living the life of a creative. When I quit my job, this was one of the things I was looking forward to the most. I had been writing over the course of a year, and I slowly over time started falling more and more in love with writing. And as I approached my quit date, that's when I kind of dabbled with the idea of maybe I would like to be a full-time writer. But I didn't really know what went into that. All I knew that being a full-time writer seemed appealing, not just from the aspect of writing every day, and I love writing, but also in certain other aspects such as flexibility of schedule and flexibility of location. These were things that really troubled me a lot with my corporate job, having to work 8 hours a day at specific times on specific days. I really do want a more flexible schedule so I can work on my own time. And then I want to be able to work from anywhere. I want to be able to take a nice 3-week vacation somewhere and do work on that vacation. And when I looked at writing as a career, I realized I could do all of that with writing. So I used this time as an experiment of sorts to see, first of all, did this really meet expectations? Did being a full-time author really be what I thought it was going to be? And then did I like it? So the first thing is what I talked about earlier, which is flexibility of schedule and location. And that pretty much is what I thought it was going to be. I imagined myself traveling a little bit more, writing in different places. And that just hasn't really worked out in terms of money because I don't have income. But I did take a trip to Scotland and I wrote my book in Scotland, which was amazing. And I can write any time of the day. I love waking up and writing first thing in the morning. Sometimes I like to write in the evening before I go to bed. I can move my schedule around to accommodate appointments or outings with friends. And in general, just that flexible lifestyle has really worked for me, and I really like it. The other thing that's been a little bit different is how I envisioned my actual writing time. I think this was a little bit skewed because I come from a corporate setting where you sit at a desk all day for 8 hours. So when I imagined writing full time, I imagined sitting at a desk writing for 8 to 12 hours every day. And this is actually, for me, quite far from the reality. I can sit down and write for 8 to 12 hours in a day, but I can't do it every single day. And there's a few reasons why. First, I have life stuff, appointments, outings, and just in general going out and enjoying life. Because I have this time available to me, I want to take advantage of it and I don't want to hole myself up in my apartment. Also, I now have the flexibility to run errands and do things on the weekdays, and I've chosen to do that. It's a lot less stressful, there's a lot less people out, less traffic, and it's just better for me. And because of that, I generally have things that I'm doing every single day. And so I can't sit down and write for 8 hours because I'm out doing stuff. I do generally have 1 or 2 writing days per week where I'm completely dedicated to writing, but I can't really go much more than that just because I have to leave my apartment. I have to do things. On top of this, I also do YouTube videos once a week. So that's time I have to spend doing YouTube instead of writing. So as you can see, the time starts like chipping away. And I think I write between 2 and 4 hours every day. So if we do the math, 3 times 7 is 21. So I'm just going to round down to 20. So that's 20 hours a week of writing plus 10 hours a week of YouTube. That's 30 hours of work per week. And then I do tend to have 1 or 2, like I said, 1 or 2 writing days where I do write more than like 2 or 4 hours in a day. So I think it kind of averages out close to a full-time job with both of my activities that I work on. Another reason I'm not writing all day every day is just the mental and physical exhaustion of sitting at a computer. Physically, I get the urge to move, to get up. Sitting in the same position for hours can be really uncomfortable. And I think when I worked, a lot of times I could throw my headset on and walk around, or I'd go talk to people and break up my day. And when I'm writing, it's literally 0 distractions and I'm just sitting there typing. I can't physically leave my computer. And so it's just the physical aspect of having to get up and move that has really kind of interrupted that 8-hour day. And then also mentally, some days I just can't get in the zone. I will usually force myself to write. Like I'll say, okay, I'm writing 200 words or 300 words. But there are some days I'm just not in the mood to write all day. Mentally, it's like a block. And these days happen, and I don't really force myself to sit down and write because I feel like that's a waste of my time. But in the end, I've found that I really enjoy the creative life. I enjoy working on creative things all day long. It exercises my brain. I feel rejuvenated every day. I wake up and I'm excited for the day. I'm not dreading it. I'm looking forward to working on my book or making a YouTube video or whatever I have going on that day. And that combined with the flexible schedule, I have very little stress. Life is going pretty good. And if this was my full-time everyday life forever, I'd be really content. And even though I have to go back to work, having had this experience has been really beneficial because now I've lived this life and I know what it's like. And I know this is what I want my life to be like, and this is what I want to do with my life. And so even though I'll be working and doing things I don't want to do, I have this vision in my mind, almost like this hope or this goal to work towards. Someday, eventually, I'll be able to do it again. I'm going to move more into the craft stuff. And first, I'm going to talk about writing. So this is what I've done and what I've learned while writing full-time for a year. First and foremost, it's been a joy to write every single day. It makes me so happy. I wake up excited. I work on my book all day. Not once have I thought, oh, I don't want to do this. I don't like writing. Like, these thoughts have never crossed my mind. And I'll be honest, being a writer and writing full time, really, I didn't know if it was for me when I quit my job. I was only in the middle of my first draft when I quit. And so I hadn't even written a whole book yet. I've only been working on it for a year at that point. And this was kind of like, let me see if I like writing. Let me see if I would like being an author. And I can certainly say I did. I've written almost every single day. And I have written in the last year 3.5 drafts. Overall, I've been really productive. I've put down a lot of words. And I've made really great progress on my book, and it's moving along pretty well. However, there was one huge mistake I made in this whole adventure, and it does kind of revolve around the fact that I knew from the beginning I only had a certain amount of time to do this, about a year. before my savings started to run dry and I'd need to get a job again. And the lesson I learned is quality is much more important than quantity. Since I only had about a year, I wanted to make the very most of it, and I wanted to do as much as possible in this time frame. And in my mind, that meant writing as many drafts as possible, because every draft is better than the next draft and it gets you closer and closer to the end of your book. But what I did quite unintentionally was put a lot of pressure on myself to produce a lot. And what ended up happening was, yes, I produced a lot of drafts, I wrote a lot of words, but the quality from draft to draft wasn't really that great. Yes, every draft got better, but I wasn't really seeing huge improvements, and I still never felt like my story was super interesting or really had emotional impact, and I struggled a lot just trying to figure out how to make it better. I had felt this way for a few drafts, and after draft 3, I sat down and I said, okay, I'm not going to start another draft, go into the draft, and then hate what I'm writing and not make huge improvements. Like, I was tired of that happening, because I felt like if I kept doing this, I was just going to write more drafts and I would end up needing like 15 drafts. And what I came up with was I wasn't really planning out my drafts very well. I was in such a rush to go from one draft to the next that I only spent like a week or two in between each draft. And I didn't really plan. Like, I'd read it and I'd be like, okay, yeah, I need to work on the plot. I need to work on this character. But I never really made a plan. And so when I sat down and wrote, a lot of times I'd forget or I'd try to address it, but I wasn't really sure what I was doing or where. And as a result, my draft just didn't really change that much. And so this time for draft 4, I sat down and I really came up with a solid plan. I re-outlined my whole story. I focused on some main areas like plot and character, and I charted out the progression of everything. The progression of the characters, the relationships, the world, the plot. And I looked at the spacing and how everything connected together. And I really analyzed my story. And as a result, I'm like a third of the way into draft 4 of Project Lily. And it's so much better. I just feel like this is the first time I have a really solid story and my characters are actually growing. Like, I'm just so much happier with it. And after going through this experience, I realized that I should have taken the time to really fix the quality of my work as opposed to just putting out another draft. I really believe if I'd fixed the quality, I probably would be one draft less, but my quality would be amazing. So it's a big lesson learned, and I will definitely, going forward, treat my drafts with a lot more respect and focus on the quality of the work rather than getting thousands of words every day and going from one draft to the next really quickly. The importance is to take the time to hone the craft. And I was just so focused on maximizing my time that I lost sight of the craft itself. Unfortunately, I only realized this around Christmas time. So I went most of this past year not really realizing this, but I'm glad I made this realization. And it was this process itself that made me realize that. The next topic is going to be YouTube, and this is a really interesting one. So when I quit my job, I was posting 1 video a week, and this has been a writing specific channel for 2 years now. So this had been going the same time I started my book as a writing channel. And my goal when I quit was to bump up my publishing schedule from 1 video a week to 2 videos a week. In my mind, I thought this was reasonable because I didn't have a job and I'd be able to spend more time making YouTube videos. And hopefully by amping up the YouTube videos, I would get monetization faster, and the monetization would help supplement my income while I'm on this journey. And by no means did I think it would be a livable income. I was just hoping for like some pocket change every month, something to just get me excited about some kind of money coming in. And I did do this about a month or 2 after quitting my job. I did 2 videos a week for a month. And at the end of that month, I decided that I wasn't going to do it anymore. And I went back down to publishing 1 video a week. And basically what drove this decision was writing. I had truly become a full-time YouTuber. And my intention with this year off has not been to be a full-time YouTuber. It has been to be a full-time writer. And I'll talk through with you a little bit about it because I just find it interesting. But a YouTube video takes about 10 hours a week to make. And that's really not that bad. But 2 YouTube videos a week is 20 hours, which also doesn't sound bad, but you have to take into account just the mechanics of making a YouTube video. So the first day is usually me recording it, and I'd have to do really short videos because I don't have a lot of time. So the first day would be me recording like a day in my life, or maybe I do 2 days of recording. Then the whole next day, more like day and a half, would be editing. Editing takes probably 8 to 9 of the 10 hours of time. And then once I'm done editing, I upload it. But because I'm publishing roughly every 3 days, I literally start that process again. I record again the next day, edit for 2 days, record again the next day, edit for 2 days. It was this constant cycle, and I felt like I was always doing YouTube. And because I was spending at least 3 days a week editing, that was 3 days a week I wasn't writing. By the end of the month, I knew that I wasn't going to continue this because I just felt like this opportunity I had was to make a lot of progress on my writing. And I wasn't making a lot of progress, and I felt like YouTube was holding me back. So I went to 1 video a week, and it's been working wonderfully for me ever since. I think I've only missed 1 video in the entire year. And I'm still not monetized, but you know, that is what it is. And I'm continuing to do YouTube. I will continue to do 1 video a week, but I'm just really glad I figured out that like doing 2 videos a week wasn't for me, and that, you know, it helped me learn to focus on my writing. So that was how the creative things in my life went over the last year. And now I want to talk about where I am now. So obviously, still writing, still doing YouTube videos. I am applying for jobs. I have been quite unsuccessful in that area. I've had 1 screening interview in 3 months, and I've applied to 76 jobs, I think. And I've decided to go back to a full-time job doing what I was doing before. And I know I was miserable, but I feel like this is the best option for me, and I wanted to walk through why I think that's the best option for me. First, I've looked at other industries and other types of careers in corporate, and nothing has really stood out to me. And I think it's just the corporate atmosphere. Like, I'm just not excited about it. I don't want to be in it. I don't want to do it. And the other aspect of that is if I were to change careers per se in corporate, I'd be looking at a much lower salary. I might be looking more at like an entry-level job as to opposed to like a middle manager or higher level individual contributor job. That would be okay with me if I liked what I was doing. But since I already know like it's not interesting to me, I already know I'm not going to like it. So why would I do that? People have also said to me, well, why don't you get a part-time job? It'll help you through. Yes, it would help me through. I mean, it's something, but it's not livable, and it doesn't really solve my income problem. I'm not below taking a part-time job. It's just when I looked at it, that's 3 hours a day, meaning I lose 3 writing days. And when I thought about it, I was just like, I'd rather get a full-time job for 5 days a week and make enough money to pay my bills. And I also thought about, what if I just get a minimum wage job full-time and just make ends meet? And I honestly truly think I'd be happy doing that. Working in a little coffee shop, working in a bakery, working in a flower shop, whatever, doing that every day for 40 hours a week, I truly think I'd enjoy it. And then writing afterwards. But I can't do it. If I had other income streams, like if I was making $500 to $1,000 on YouTube every month, or if I had something else going on, maybe like books already published where I was making money, then this might be doable. But right now, I can't pay my rent and my health insurance and my groceries and everything else I need to. The thing that has frustrated me the most in this whole thing is knowing what I want to do and not being able to do it, that basically my only option at this point is to go back to work when that is 100% what I don't want to do. So yes, I'm going to go back to a full-time job. My hope is that I can earn a little extra money that I can save. Maybe I can quit my job again in a few years and do the same thing, or maybe I can just quit it when I get to a better financial place. So hopefully I'll just be able to save a little money, and maybe I can even use that money to do something else to make money. But unfortunately, I mean, what this all really comes down to is I have to pay my bills. But I'm not going to let this deter me. I'm going to keep writing. I'm going to keep doing YouTube videos. I truly do love writing, and I am going to do whatever it takes to pursue this and to hopefully get this life back. Although I say get it back, I actually still have it because I don't have a job, but that's besides the point. I'm going to do everything I can to have this lifestyle in the future. I do believe that everything will work out. I also believe that things don't work out like you expected. And so I'm not surprised I had to go get a full-time job after this. But I am glad that I've found a lifestyle that I enjoy, a passion that I enjoy. I'm very privileged to have been able to have this experience, and I'm very grateful for it. It really has made such a difference in terms of knowing what my future goals are and designing my future life and how I make decisions on a day-to-day basis to support writing and to support my dream of a creative life. I learned so much, and I had such a great time in this year. I'm sad to see it kind of come to an end at some point, but I know it's always there waiting for me in the future.